And our Way to a Wonderful Life message for today is titled, Happy New You. Happy New You. And so we have some quotes here from the Holy Bible. The first one is from the Gospel of Luke. It's 9:3-5. The Gospel of Luke, 9:3-5. He told them, take nothing for the journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that town. If people do not welcome you, leave their town and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. Now, when we look at these words, we realize that Jesus is telling us something that's far different than what the words may imply. Because the words give us a literal understanding, but Jesus was always speaking from a subjective level of consciousness. So he's telling us, let your consciousness make the demand for the things that you want, and don't be concerned about what it is that you need, but realize in consciousness that everything that you will require will be taken care of. And if you fall into that momentary lapse in consciousness to where your needs may not be met, reject that consciousness and affirm within your mind, your heart, and your soul once again that God is your supply, that God is your source, and in God, with God, all good things are possible. Just bring that into your mind. So that people do not welcome you. He means the consciousness. If the consciousness doesn't welcome you, leave it behind. Shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against it. And not allow yourself to take anything personally, but to realize that it's in your consciousness to realize and to have and to manifest and to demonstrate the good that's necessary for you to realize the good life, the abundant life, and the joyful life. Then let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes, 10:19-19. Now, this is really an amazing change in thought. We read, a feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Think about that. What is he telling us? A feast is made for laughter. We can agree with that. And wine maketh merry. We can understand that too, because most people, a little wine will make them a little happier than normal. But money answereth all things. So what is he telling us? He's telling us that we need to find ourselves a way in which to accept more of the prosperity, more of the abundance, more of the good that God has for us. Because it's knowing that we have whatever is needed to meet our requirements of life that give us a sense of being happy and a sense of being free. We won't have the laughter with the feast or the merriness with the wine if we don't have the money to do those things that we want to do. We won't have the money for the feast, and we won't have the money for the wine. So we must learn to cultivate, develop, foster, and nurture the consciousness that God does give us each day our daily bread, and that bread symbolizes everything necessary to live a life with grace and ease, everything necessary to realize the comfort and the joys of life, to realize the goodness of life, the prosperity of life. So that's why Jesus said, I have come to tell you that you may have life and you may have it more abundantly. And he told us, if our mind is stayed on God, stayed on the good, then all the good things will come to us. So a feast is made for laughter, we read in Ecclesiastes 10:19, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Money answereth all things. What a wonderful thing to think about. Think about these words and what they're telling us. Think about the wisdom that's in that Holy Bible. You know, so many people use the Bible to beat people up with it, you know. You have these people, they call them Bible thumpers, where they want to, take the Bible, cherry pick the things that are in alignment with their false ideas of judgment and their agendas for whatever it is that they want to have personally accomplished in their own lives. And they beat people up. The Bible is not to beat us up. It's to inspire us, to find the wisdom in it, and to find that realization that all these people were telling us that we have a personal relationship with God. But it won't be personal unless we personalize it. We must personalize it. We personalize it by thinking intelligently, by thinking rightly, by withholding judgment from anyone or anything, and allowing ourselves to realize that God makes all things good in the right and perfect time in the right and perfect way. When that which is perfect comes, that which is imperfect comes to an end, but it's not our job to end it. It's not our place to judge it. It's our place to let God do God's perfect work in whatever way that comes to pass. Now, for the rest of this message, I'm going to take some words from the Bishop T.D. Jakes of Dallas, Texas. Everybody knows who T.D. Jakes is, Bishop T.D. Jakes. And this is not his sermon in its entirety, but he wrote this, I think, in 2006. So we're almost 10 years past the time of the sermon, but the sermon is just as valid today as it was back in 2006. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on this as well as his thoughts. He tells us, and this is good for us to take into the new year so we can celebrate that happy new you all through 2016. He says, there are people who can walk away from you. And he writes, and hear me when I tell you this, when people can walk away from you, let them walk. Let them walk. I don't want you to try to talk another person into staying with you, loving you, calling you, caring about you, coming to see you, staying attached to you. I mean, hang up the phone. Hang up the phone. When people can walk away from you, let them walk. Your destiny is never tied to anybody that left. Your destiny is never tied to anybody that left. The Bible said that they came out from us that it might be made manifest that they were not for us. For had they been for us, of us, no doubt they would have continued with us. That's from 1 John 2:19. So people leave you because they are not joined to you. And if they are not joined to you, you can't make them stay. Let them go. Let them go. So what he's telling us in reality is that in consciousness, some people move forward in their consciousness, and some people stay right where they are. Stay right where they are. You know, you think about people that remember all the bad things of life about people, but they don't take into consideration the shift, the change in consciousness once the person has a greater realization of their place in the universe and their purpose in the universe and why we're here. But the people with the lack of consciousness want to remind them of the bad things they did rather than realize the good things that have come from those bad things. One, a good example is the presidential candidate Donald Trump was talking about ex-President Bill Clinton. I guess they still call him President Bill Clinton. He was talking about what had happened with Bill Clinton years ago, but he didn't have that fortitude in his mind, that intelligence in his mind to realize that after those things happened with Bill Clinton, he created the Clinton Foundation. He almost had a heart attack, so he had a life-changing event, and that life-changing event brought him closer to the reality that his purpose was to do good rather than to do that which diminishes himself and others around him. So Donald Trump was focused on the negative, the thing that happened for just a few short months, if more than that, rather than all the work that Bill Clinton has done for over the past decade to bring a greater help and a greater assistance to people all over the world through his Clinton Foundation. So we know that there are people that just cannot realize the consciousness once our consciousness shifts, because their consciousness is still in the problem. Their consciousness is still in the judgment. Their consciousness is still back there somewhere focusing on the negative. So we must take into our mind that realization that no matter what we may have done in the past, no matter what anyone else has done in the past, that today is a new day, today is a new year, and as we go into this new year with this new consciousness, this new realization of our purpose, which is to imitate the nature of God, the image, the likeness of God, and to bring forth the Spirit of God through happiness and joy and harmony and peace and love and understanding and compassion and empathy, all those things, we can bring that into our mind as a way in which we live our life through consciousness, and we don't have to worry about taking anything for the journey, just as Jesus tells us, because we're already prepared. We're already prepared for the realization of the greater thing still that Jesus tells us is always ours to do. If you woke up today, there's a greater thing still for you to do. So as T.D. Jakes says, people leave you because they are not joined to you. That's why Donald Trump turned on Bill Clinton. He's not joined to him anymore because Bill Clinton is all about creating good. And if they are not joined to you, you can't make them stay. So let their judgments be whatever they are, but let them go. Let them go. And if it doesn't mean that they are a bad person, it just means that their part in the story, your story, is over. And you've got to know when people's part in your story is over so that you don't keep trying to raise the dead. T.D. Jakes tells us you've got to know when it's dead. You've got to know when it's dead. I'm reminded of that statement, if the horse is dead, get off. If the horse is dead, get off. In other words, let the dead bury the dead, Jesus said. Let those who just think about the past, those old past things that are dead and gone, let them be focused on that if they want to. But today is the day the Lord has made, and we are to rejoice and be glad in it, which means we are to act with inspiration from the on high and be lifted in the love of the Holy Spirit in all that we do. You've got to know when it's over, T.D. Jakes tells us. He says, let me tell you something. I've got the gift of goodbye. I've got the gift of goodbye. He said, it's the 10th spiritual gift. I believe in goodbye. It's not that I'm hateful, it's that I'm faithful, and I know whatever God means for me to have, God will give it to me. And if it takes too much sweat, I don't need it. So stop begging people to stay. Let them go. Let them go. So when we think about that, and we think about those years of friendship that the Clintons had with Donald Trump, we can pretty much bet that somebody's going to let that go. So let's just start thinking and realizing all this noise and nonsense going on in our world with the politics and with the religions and all this stuff that stop us from realizing that love that God has for each and every one of us. That if we awaken today, that God has given us an opportunity to have a greater realization of our purpose in life, and to realize that whatever we've done in consciousness, we did it in the consciousness that we had at the time, but that consciousness doesn't stay with us. Our consciousness is always changing, always expanding. But it's only when in mind we go back and we judge it, and we go back and we focus on the negative things, we go back and we allow ourselves to get caught up in the nonsense. It's only then that we realize that all these things are detrimental to us. We can't have the good life if we're focusing on the negative about ourselves or about anyone. We just can't. That's not the way life works. Life doesn't work thinking about the past. We're living today. We're in the present moment. We're in the present time, and it's up to us to realize that in this present time, that all things good come to us in the right and perfect way in the right and perfect time, but our mind must be stayed on the good, not on the negative, not about ourselves or about anyone else. Because all this hatefulness that we see in the world, all this divisiveness, all these people that are talking down each other, that are holding each other in scorn, they're creating all this massive violence that we see in the world and all this confusion that we see in the world and all this destruction of all the good and wonderful things that God has created for all of us. There's enough good for everyone. We don't have to be concerned with losing our good. We only have to be concerned with losing God in our mind and letting something else take over, letting the negatives take over. Let's not do that. Let's not let ourselves be beguiled by the noise and the nonsense of people just because they're all being fed their ideas to us through the media. Turn that TV off. Put the mute button on and don't listen to the noise and the nonsense that diminishes life and diminishes other people. Bring your mind closer into the realization that God is always available, that God is present, and that means that good is present, that good is more powerful than anything unlike it, that when we read in the book of Isaiah that I am the Lord, besides me there is none other, we know that all this other stuff is just the illusion of man's confusion, and we let it go. We let it go. Let's go back to T.D. Jakes. If you are holding on to something that doesn't belong to you and was never intended for your life, then you need to let it go. If you are holding on to past hurts and pains, let it go. If someone can't treat you right, love you back, and see your worth, let it go. If someone has angered you, let it go. If you are holding on to some thoughts of evil and revenge, let it go. If you are involved in a wrong relationship or an addiction, let it go. If you keep judging others to make yourself feel better, let it go. If you are struggling with the healing of a broken relationship, let it go. If you keep trying to help someone who won't even try to help themselves, let it go. Let the past be the past. Forget the former things. Let the past be the past and forget the former things. God is doing a new thing through you for 2016. God is going to do a new thing through you in 2016. So let's look at these words again from the Holy Bible. From the Gospel of Luke, the good news we can read in Luke 9, 3 through 5. He told them, take nothing for the journey. No staff, no bag, no bread, no money, and no extra shirt. Take nothing for the journey. No staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. Whatever house you enter, in other words, whatever consciousness you find yourself in, stay there until you leave that town, until you leave that moment, until you leave that consciousness. If people do not welcome you, leave their town and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. In other words, don't let your consciousness be brought down by anyone. As the great Dr. Bitzer said, be careful where you take your consciousness. Be careful where you take your consciousness, because there's a whole stream out there in the collective consciousness of people that only want to talk about the negative, that only want to talk about the things that diminish other people, that only want to talk about the things that separate us from God and from each other. If we're separated from each other, then we're separated from God. For each and every one of us are created in the image, the likeness of God, no matter what we may be doing or what we may have done in this life. That image and that likeness is always there waiting for us to recognize it and to realize it and to bring it forth through our life expression. So let's look at these words from Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 10, 19, 19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Now this is something this really gives us something to think about. What is he telling us? A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. So he's telling us money. So what does he mean by money? Money is no different than you give us this day our daily bread. Money symbolizes divine circulation. Money symbolizes that which is needed and required for us to go out into the world to have the good things, to live the good life. And if we want to be a happy new you in 2016, we're going to need some money for the feast, and we're going to need some money for the wine, and we're going to need some money for whatever it is that gives us enjoyment and comfort. Just as Reverend Ike said, and hopefully I'll get this quote right, he said, before you reach those pearly gates, you're going to need some money, honey. Before you reach those pearly gates, You're going to need some money, honey. And in Ecclesiastes, we have an agreement with him right there. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. So happy new you. Happy new you when you affirm and say and believe and accept in your mind that you are lifted in the love of the Holy Spirit right now, right where you are, and every day. So let your mind be focused on the good, focused on God, and leave the rest behind. Leave it behind, let it go. Let it go and enjoy this day. And let this day begin your new year. Begin your new year with all the happiness and the joy and the expectations of good that you can imagine for yourself. And let the Holy Spirit move through your mind, your heart, and your soul with new ideas. Ideas that will prosper you, make you healthier and happier. Ideas that will bring you success and accomplishment in whatever it is that you do. Ideas that will draw to you loving companionship, that will give you that feeling of being alive to life in the greatest way possible. So let that happy new you say, I am happy. I am happy. Someone asked Dr. O.C. Smith, how do I become happy? And he said, just make the decision in your mind to be happy. Say, I am happy. So happy new you. And so it is. Amen.